This holiday season, you better watch out, because Universal Pictures and Imagine Entertainment are planning to steal Christmas. A whole new world built across 11 sound stages, more than 300 visual effect shots, 1,000 man-hours in makeup, 1 billion watts of wattage, and one Jim Carrey. All brought together for the biggest motion picture production in years.
That worked out nicely.
From Brian Grazer and Ron Howard comes Dr. Seuss's classic story, How the Grinch Stole Christmas. When Brian Grazer and Ron Howard first considered producing Dr. Seuss's classic children's tale, they knew they were taking on a formidable task.
The challenge was to be true to the Grinch as he existed in the books.
It was very important for us to remain consistent with the vision of Seuss and, more importantly, the spirit of the characters. I always saw Jim Carrey, always.
Oh, no.
Jim Carrey brought a level of passion and total belief in the story, its entertainment value, and a sense of just the hipness of this character.
Oh, there's just so many elements you would not believe it, and I'm amazed at him and his ability to navigate that.
Jury duty, jury duty, jury duty, blackmail, pink slip, chain letter, eviction notice, jury duty.
That story is just such a part of Christmas for me, my whole life, you know? So yeah, it was incredibly important not to screw it up.
You're the
Grinch!
Whoville is this very upbeat place. People are very busy. They're happy, but they're busy.
There are the familiar faces of Jeffrey Tambor as the mayor of Whoville and Christine Baranski as the Grinch's old flame. Acclaimed Broadway actor Bill Irwin plays Postmaster Lulu Who. Saturday Night Live's Molly Shannon is his wife, Betty Lou Who. And 6-year-old Taylor Momsen stars in her first featured role as Cindy Lou Who, the little girl who is convinced that the Grinch is not really mean, just misunderstood.
She has the nerve to go up to the Grinch's cave and knock on his door and not get scared by the traps or anything.
Taylor Momsen is a real discovery. She seems to have an innate kind of understanding of the Cindy Lou Who character.
Mr. Grinch, my name is Cindy Lou Who.
There was one very crucial cast member who couldn't be found from central casting.
Max the dog is a very important character. Max lives with the Grinch, the only living creature that the Grinch seems willing to tolerate.
Oh, Max. I love ya!
Max was actually rescued from a pound about 4 or 5 months before the filming.
As the cast came together, so did the crew of costume designers, set builders, makeup artists, and visual effects technicians who would be responsible for bringing the world of Dr. Seuss to life. Turning the production sketches, storyboards, and models into actual buildings was one of the most ambitious operations ever attempted for a motion picture.
I think there's certain Seussian rules that we had to follow.
And we're trying to flesh out something that is a line drawing in a book. So not only does Ron have the challenge of narratively fleshing it out, but how do we visually do it?
While the production and set designers focused on every minute detail of all 11 sound stages, the most critical element of the film was still under wraps: the physical transformation of Jim Carrey into the Grinch. It was clear that Jim Carrey's costume would have to be something special, and that his makeup could only be the work of the world's foremost expert, 5-time Academy Award winner Rick Baker.
I'd always hoped that sometime in my life I would be able to do a big fantasy like this, and I'm so happy.
I absolutely was amazed at his artistry. It was incredible. He just loves to have fun and get his hands dirty and get involved and create something, and that's what we're all about.
If it's going to work on anybody, it would work on Jim, because he's so good at contorting his face. He does this great Grinch face, right? He does a Grinch smile and stuff, you know. Jim's got, you know, a rubber face to begin with.
Jim Carrey wasn't the only one being transformed. Every Who down in Whoville needed a certain unique look, and it was up to Rick and his team to design each and every one of them.
The scale of this movie is so immense. Never have I done anything where we had, you know, 90 people in makeup.
Eventually, Ron Howard decided he had to experience what the cast was going through for himself.
I did dress up as the Grinch one day and directed all day long as the Grinch. It must have been very confusing for everyone else.
Great, let's move on. This is ridiculous. If I can't find something nice to wear, I'm not going.
Hundreds of costumes were required for the Who's of Whoville.
I really tried to evoke the feelings I had when I read Dr. Seuss as a child. It's really theatrical. We have a Prada Who and a Chanel Who, and I don't know how many people will notice that, but that made it a lot of fun for me.
While shooting continued at Universal Studios, work was already underway at Digital Domain, the visual effects team behind Ron Howard's Oscar-winning Apollo 13.
Probably the biggest challenge in this film is the sheer number of shots.
The set of Whoville is the largest ever built at Universal Studios. Still, the filmmakers used several computer-generated matte paintings to further extend the fanciful world of the Who's.
There's a blue screen wrapping around it that allows us to composite extended buildings, mountains, sky, etc.
Once every nuance of production had been carefully considered, there was one more crucial detail of post-production for Ron Howard to address.
Ask any Who, and they'll have this to say: there is no place like Whoville around Christmas Day.
Ron called upon the distinguished Academy Award-winning actor Sir Anthony Hopkins to provide the narrator's perfect tone and pitch.
It's total whimsy and total freedom from who we are and where we live, which is the great thing about doing this stuff.
I know we've created a world that is mind-blowing, that I've never even seen before in any other movie. I mean, that it has speed and color and light.
We all had our work cut out for us with The Grinch.
Tell it to stop!
We had great screenwriters. We went to Rick Baker, one of the world's greatest makeup artists. And of course, the extraordinary Jim Carrey. He's green, he's hairy, he's hilarious. And we've had a lot of laughs.
We did it! Cut, print, check the gate, move. I'm going, and that's that. Had my fingers crossed.
When Ron called me about The Grinch and asked me if I was interested, I said, yeah, of course. You know, it was like a dream come true. I always wanted to do a big fantasy film where virtually everyone is makeup.
In trying to create a total new dimension and new world, we needed great makeups and great makeup designs. And Rick has proven himself year after year, movie after movie, to be the best.
They want to spend a little quality time with the Grinch. I guess I could use a little social interaction.
I instantly had a vision of what I thought the Grinch should be. But the first thing I said to him was, I have no idea what the Who's are and how we're going to do that.
Hey, stranger, won't let you go till you buy a chapeau.
I knew that they should look otherworldly, but that they should predominantly look human, and most importantly, be cute. Because the Who's were always cute. And it was the Grinch, not only spoiled Christmas, but it's the contrast of this big, hairy, ugly, powerful Grinch in the world of all these cute people that live on this really superficial diet of Christmas and happiness and gifts.
Hot crowd, hot crowd.
And some of the early tests that we did that were especially more Seuss-like were not for this movie. I mean, even though they were like trying to interpret Seuss designs, they seemed like a Twilight Zone episode. And it was a hard balance because it can be very grotesque, right? Moving someone's nose in a place where it doesn't belong. So it's a very fine line. We're always balancing on that line and trying to figure out exactly where we were and didn't want to step over to the evil side, you know?
What happened to you?
It was the Grinch!
All of the Who's wore what we call appliances. They're foam rubber pieces that we apply to their face that have a tissue-thin blending edge that just virtually disappears into their skin. The Who's were, for the most part, basically one appliance, which was like a nose and upper lip. You know, some of them had brows and also had ears, as well as dentures and wigs.
Come on, hurry up, Slowpoke.
I was so excited about working with Jim because the approach I wanted to go with, I knew was going to be difficult makeup to wear. So many times I'll do tests on myself. I grew up making myself up, you know. Usually when I do something like this, I'll do a version on myself so I know what I'm putting somebody through. So I did this test of the Grinch on myself and videotaped it.
I hate those Who's.
Part of what I do, you know, is being a makeup designer is, you know, I try to design makeups that work, you know. Not only that look good, but actually the actor can move. And that was part of the challenge, not only to come up with a design for the Grinch that just in a still picture looks like the Grinch, but Jim Carrey has this incredibly expressive face. And I didn't want to be the one to limit what he can do with his face. So you have to take all that into consideration. It's, as thick as we could make it in areas where I knew we could make it thicker, and it's actually tissue thin in many areas of his face so that he could do all those expressions.
You could put the Grinch makeup on 8 people and line them up, and if they're just standing still, you might not know which one is Jim Carrey. But the minute they start moving, certainly the minute they open their mouths, there's no question.
Hello, little girl.
How dare you enter the Grinch's lair! The impudence! The audacity!
We did, I think, about a half a dozen different tests, varying degrees of Jim showing. Eventually, we did one where we basically painted him green, because that kept coming up. Finally, after we painted Jim Carrey green and we looked at all of them, they decided that my very first approach was really the right way to go.
Oh, it's deliciously evil.
It was really a challenge, because I was buried, and my eyeballs were covered and my hands had long fingers on them and stuff like that.
I'll tell you, Max, I don't know why I ever leave this place. I've got all the company I need right here. Hello!
Where the real torture comes in, I think, are the number of days that Jim had to wear this makeup. I mean, he worked for 92 days. 92 days of coming in the morning, sitting in the makeup chair, having somebody put glue on your face, and a 2.5-hour process every morning, and an hour removal process at the end of the day is torture. I mean, for that many days, it's ridiculous. I don't know of anybody, I think, that's worn a makeup that many times.
Jim is so active, and he moves a lot, and he sweats a lot, and his expression is like crazy. He moves around a lot. So the challenging part was keep the makeup looks good whole day as much as possible. And also, of course, he didn't want it to sit in a chair for a long time, so try to go as quick as possible.
Now you're doomed!
The process for Jim was about the same as with anybody in the film. I mean, you come in the morning, the first thing you do is clean their skin to make sure that you have a really clean skin to put this stuff on so the glue works, and then we put a protective coating on it to help preserve their skin. The appliances are glued on with a medical adhesive that we use. Each piece is individually put on. Then we put this special makeup type paint that we use to make his skin the same color as the appliance. It's not one color. It's not like Grinch green, we just sponge on that. We have a basic green coat that goes on first, but then there's purples and there's yellows and all these different layers of colors to help make it look more real and translucent. When that's all done, the hair pieces go on. The Grinch was pretty much one big wig and neck piece and facial hair that goes on here and eyebrows.
I had to be a Zen master. By the end of the project, you could have hit me in the face with a baseball bat and I would have gone, "Good morning, nice to see you." I learned patience. It was amazing.
Ready and action! This coat and this hat are just like St. Nick. Ho-ho! You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
The toughest thing that we faced coming into this was trying to sell who's, what who's were, trying to come up with a concept of what a who is and how does a who move and what can who's do that normal people can't do.
When you take a human being and you take the book and you say, okay, that's what the who's look like in the book and here's what human beings look like, how do we turn human beings into who's in a way that still makes them likable and fun to look at?
If Theodore Geisel was around today, what would his slant be on this subject? So we just took the couple of clues that he gave us about the who's and whoville and they're kind of, you know, over-the-top enthusiasm for Christmas.
What are you talking about? No, it's insane. I can't do that. Don't touch me there.
We've had a choreographer come in who also could help us sort of focus on what would the common behavior be in Whoville? What's the group reaction to things? What do they have in common in their in the way that they move?
I'm trying to give you the maximum possibility, but obviously it may be too caricature, and we'll draw it back. But
Who's school was trying to figure out what Who's were. Really, it was kind of everybody getting together, all the Cirque du Soleil performers, all of the actors, a bunch of the extras, everybody just working out different routines, working on different physical gags, wire gags, fly rigs, just to try to develop some sort of a language for Who's.
They wanted us to do leaning, like you know, that when you stop and listen, you're like, who? You know, it's about balance and stuff. That maybe you'd be moving forward or resting in a certain way, but real, not too fake.
Merry Christmas, everybody! Merry Christmas, honey!
Merry Christmas, you hunk of burnin' who?
We spent the first 3 weeks in Stage 18 down here on the lot with different things set up, some mirrors, and that I was comfortable with. It's a dance studio. I know you face the mirrors and you watch everybody. But crash pads, mini trampolines, stunt rigs so you can get used to all the things that the stunt guys are going to ask of you.
The Who workers, they don't go out with a truck with a crane or a boom. They go out with a teeter board and they bounce on this teeter board and somebody hands them a wreath and they dress it on the building. So it's kind of unusual things like that. People balancing huge stacks of packages without any effort, without any problem. None of them tumbling over. Those are the kinds of things that I think will sell Whoville.
Charlie Crowell, our stunt coordinator, he works with a lot of the Cirque du Soleil people, a lot of circus performers, and people that are involved in movement and technique in movement.
The reason we went with Cirque du Soleil performers are because they have all the physical abilities you could possibly need or want, yet they also have a really strong performance background in very odd characters and odd situations, things that are just completely out of the norm.
You start to realize, okay, we're in a place where a lot is possible. You don't have to confine yourself to these kinds of possibilities. So Ron would say, you know, on the spur of the moment, down in the big Whoville Stage 12 set, could somebody do a flip there? And of course, you know, Charlie said, sure.
There's going to be a guy down here with 2 big strands of tinsel, and he's going to be feeding it up to her, and she's going to be up there just leaning out over the edge like that, pulling it up. Actually, she could be leaning at any angle we want.
That who balance.
It's that who balance. And that was what was neat about the Cirque guys. The enthusiasm was great. They were all ready to try anything new, and that was the bicycle gag, too. Those are the kinds of things we tried to plug in every chance we got, was just something odd happening in the back. So you kind of went, that's kind of strange.
The presence of circus people always comforts me. It makes me feel like, okay, good, we're on solid footing now. We can do this or that, and we don't have to think only on earthbound terms.
So that's kind of what Who School was all about. Who School is developing the Who character and then getting all the actors, all the extras, and all the Cirque performers comfortable with those characters and then comfortable with doing stunts and the physicalities that were going to be required.
Welcome, welcome, Christmas Day is in our grasp. So long as we have hands to clasp.
Fahu, Remu, Yahoo, Hee-Haw, welcome, Christmas, praise of cheer. Fahu, for a
was conceived sort of not as Seuss had done it in the book, just a series of little haystack houses, but I wanted to make it as a medieval village based around a town square, but instead of it, the central, sort of the focus of the square being a fountain or a public thing, it was going to be their Christmas tree. That was the hub that the spokes of everything else sort of radiated from.
Merry Christmas! Oh, yeah, you bet. Ho, 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 and stuff.
Oh, my! Someone has vandalized that vehicle.
What we began to do right away was sort of look at the roots of Dr. Seuss's view of the world, or point of view of the worlds he created.
What do you want? I mean, Grinch! Oh, no!
We had many, many conversations about how this world existed, and we're trying to flesh out something that is a line drawing. Michael Kornbluth pretty much started with the architecture, and Seuss himself, or Theodore Geisel, had a lot of organic references. We broke down sort of his work first to see what his references were.
As we look through the books, you can begin to see that he had a great love of medieval architecture. He also loved Moroccan and Islamic architecture, all the minarets and the domes. And so you could see a set of shapes that he was attracted to, and then you begin to see these shapes appearing in all sorts of fashion.
Most Seuss buildings, they kind of have that odd, slightly skewed architectural design. And Michael Kornbluth built Whoville with that in mind.
There were different types of buildings that were going to be part of this, so we knew that we needed a town hall. So I went back and really sort of looked at more sort of what the ideas or the archetypal ideas of civic architecture were, and went back to more a Greek idea of this for their town hall. I felt there was going to be ceremonial things about it.
Gee, look at the time. I really should be getting back. Ah, all right.
And then for the department store, for Farfingal's, where there are a lot of scenes, I was sort of looking at the Art Nouveau shapes that he also used, and imagined that it was an old Parisian department store. So each building had a little theme to it.
Farfingal's welcomes you. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Thank you for shopping Farfingal's.
When we wanted to know what the inside of a Who house looked like, we turned to the one page where the Grinch is stealing Christmas, and it says General Whoelectric. The refrigerator, and sort of use that as a clue and say, okay, well, we've got to build more than a refrigerator. But the kitchen looks almost like a regular kitchen, but it's not. It's a Who kitchen.
I have it, honey. I got it.
Hello?
Is my Sub-Zero chilibrator running? I suppose.
Well, then you better go catch it.
A lot of our elements are completely manufactured. They're little curlicues and wiggles and Seussy motifs, which don't exist anywhere. But when I had to pick a material, I used a lot of Bakelite and celluloid. I really wanted those kind of feels. And I went to a lot of antique stores in the beginning and brought things back to the office and took them all apart into pieces. There's a whole room in the prop shop that's just stuff that me or some of my wonderful assistants would say, oh, that looks interesting. Let's buy that. And we just throw it in this room. And all of a sudden, you know, some wonderful new thing will emerge that they've made, and I'll going, oh, that was a toaster. I remember that toaster. And it's come back in another life.
Everyone was so intent on really trying to capture the essence of these things and be as true as possible. You know, not necessarily to the letter, but more to the spirit of Seuss. And I think that's really what we're interested in, trying to really kind of celebrate sort of all that energy and all the good things about you know, the entire body of his work.
The things that are really successful to me are the things that really look like a line drawing. When there are those little moments where there's an homage directly to him, those are gratifying.
He would not believe that you could take it from first his mind and then from his written mind and make it perfect.
pressure on vomit and blitzkrieg! I'm going to throw up, and then I'm going to die!
I'm Kevin Mack. I was the visual effects supervisor for The Grinch. The central challenge of The Grinch was to translate Dr. Seuss's intrinsically two-dimensional graphic style into a three-dimensional and very realistic world.
My son died.
There are over 600 visual effect shots in the film, totaling about 43 minutes of screen time. Over 300 of those shots are major computer-generated effects. We were involved from the very beginning, and so really in our first meeting with Ron and Todd, when they were just developing the story, they came out to see us, talk to us about this project. And I was showing him some of the earlier work we'd done with opening title sequences. And they were saying, well, we got to do something really special for the opening title sequence. So I started thinking, and I thought of an earlier Dr. Seuss story that I'd read that had a whole world in a speck of dust. And I thought it would be cool to have something like that, where you have this powers of 10, orders of magnitude scale change. And then Todd Hollowell suggested that rather than a speck of dust, it could be a snowflake. And so then Ron and Todd let me just design that whole opening title sequence. So here we see the inside of the ice cave as a wireframe of just the ISO surface. And now the shader wipes on, showing the crystal simulation. And then now we see the clouds coming in with the light beams and so on. These volumetric density functions actually simulate the attenuation of light in real clouds. Now we reveal Mount Crumpet and the world of Whoville. There are over 40,000 computer-generated trees in this shot, as well as the entire town of Whoville. Because so much of the film takes place outdoors, they built this huge set of Whoville's town square and those buildings, and then we built 4 times as many buildings, extending it out and then going further to the suburbs, as well as Who Valley, Mount Crumpet, and the surrounding mountains for 100 miles in every direction. We created a virtual 3D location. This is a shot from the opening of the film where we show what was shot on stage, and then all of the elements wipe in. The town and all its buildings, as well as a number of computer-generated characters. You can see as they turn to wireframe and are brightly colored where the computer-generated characters are. We have a number of supervisors and then whole teams of artists and technicians. Any one shot may have 20, 30, 40 different people work on it. As we see the tuba, you can see where we tracked in a 3D CG tuba, and then this little pee-wee horn player pops out. Because of the limitations in the ability to add prosthetic makeup to whole crowds, we developed a toolkit. We called it the Who Construction Kit. And what it allowed us to do was to make hundreds of completely unique characters rather quickly. This is the Who Construction Kit, where we have control over the facial and body proportions, as well as clothing and fabric textures. It's interesting because doing the visual effects, we sort of touch on every aspect of the filmmaking process, from creating the virtual location, as well as the lighting and the designs of buildings and everything else. Here's a shot that was created entirely in post-production. We had some stills of the set that I took, and we needed a big crowd scene. So we populated this set with over 200 computer-generated Whos. There are no actual actors in this shot.
Max! Fetch me my sedative!
Here's a shot we did on the back lot where you see a few set pieces and the car with blue screen behind them. And then here's the final shot where the entire background, including that other car driving by, is computer generated. Here's another shot where we shot a foreground element of this character putting the star on the tree. And we extended the shot and added the entire world behind him. Here's another one, mostly blue screen, the set piece in the Grinch without any wind or snow or atmosphere. And we also actually added a bit to the Grinch's smile here to exaggerate it. Here's the final version where you see all of the snow and wind and the moving clouds in the background and the distant mountains. Notice the snowflakes landing and melting on the Grinch's fur. And then here at the end you see how exaggerated his smile becomes.
So they want to get to know me, do they? They want to spend a little quality time with the Grinch. I guess I could use a little social interaction.
A lot of the film takes place outdoors, and there's all of the sky and mountain vistas in the film are computer generated. There are no photographic skies or mountains in the film. I wanted the skies to be a character in the film. I wanted them to sort of reflect or mirror or accentuate the mood of every scene. So for instance, up on Mount Crumpet, it's the stormy, dark clouds are swirling around and they're moving really fast, and all the low-lying clouds cruising over the mountains.
Well done, Max.
After the heist, after the Grinch steals all the presents and Max the dog pulls all the presents up the hill, that's sort of this pre-dawn sequence. And so we basically took the whole sequence down and made it very dark and kind of purple and red and moody, so that when the Grinch has his epiphany as he's watching the sunrise, which is another completely computer-generated shot, you get this lifting of the emotions because the sky has changed along with his mood. Another really ambitious technique we developed for the film was for the sleigh ride. The sleigh ride utilizes a number of groundbreaking methodologies in that the sleigh is actually physically simulated. In this shot, this foreground set piece is real, and you see that the sleigh is rising up here, but now you see that the sleigh, the dog, and the background are all computer generated. Here in the final version, notice the swaying of the elements of the sleigh, the banner blowing in the wind, the rocking of the skis, as well as the dog, Max.
I gotcha, Cindy Lou!
You did it!
Here we see another entirely computer-generated shot. You see the various elements wiping on the backgrounds and the 3D mountains. This was a shot I suggested because it seemed like we needed a Sound of Music, really wide helicopter shot to show us the overall terrain. Here's another overview of a making of a completely CG shot for the downhill sleigh ride. Here we see, again, an entirely computer-generated shot, the physical simulation of the sleigh, procedural particle snow, 3D trees and terrain. It was really quite a challenge to make these shots look completely real when everything in the shot, from the foreground to the background, is computer-generated in broad daylight. So here you see the various particle systems that generate the snow coming off of the skis and displaced by the sleigh as it careens down the hill. You'll notice that the actual chunks of snow, as they are thrown into the air by the sleigh, displace the ground as they land. So we actually went to Utah and shot plates and a number of shots of the sleigh going down the hill. But because of changing weather conditions and because the location didn't really have quite the Seussian quality that our CG environment had, we wound up replacing all but 4 of those shots. Here's the shot from Utah, and then here's the sleigh placed into our CG background. You know, we worked with pretty much every department on the film. Michael Kornblith in the art department, Alan Hall and the special effects team, Rick Baker and the makeup effects team. And so, consequently, everyone was just incredibly collaborative and cooperative, and it just made for a really pleasant and fun project. It was a huge amount of work, but you know, we had a really good time doing it. It's just an amazing opportunity.
This is a flip mode squad Jim Carrey collabo.
Oh, yeah! I feel it! Whoville rocks!
I was merely noticing that it was properly packaged, my dear.
Yay! I'm sorry. Oops, sorry. What? I'm sorry. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go again.
Sorry, I gotta start over. I'm sorry, can we start again? I'm gonna start over again. I'm gonna do that over again. I gotta go again.
No, I faked you out, right?
That's what's wrong.
I didn't do my hand.
My sweet little tot. There's a light on this tree that won't light.
No, Kelly. No, Kelly. Kelly, no. Kelly, no. No.
Well, yes, but the book also says that what is it? Fruitcake, fa la la la. Sounds like another language. Oh, Martha. Please become Mrs. Augustus Mayhew.
I hate you.
I'm a loose cannon. A live wire. And
They're making noise.
Okay, now. Oh, sorry. I got
There's only one I hate more. Come to think of it. And that's the people who keep making it.
Coming through!
You okay?
My teeth came out.
My teeth just fell out.
Touch the door.
Where you going, buddy?
Whoa.
My ass!
I hope Santa isn't watching.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, God.